So I went on ChatGPT and I said, in the past year, how many pro-Trump individuals have committed acts of political violence? And then it listed a bunch of right-wing violence, including neo-Nazis and things like this. And I said, that's not pro-Trump. And it went, oh, you're right. Why did you tell me when I said pro-Trump individuals, you listed neo-Nazis? In one instance, it was a neo-Nazi who wanted to assassinate Trump. This is what it does.
Right.
It's programmed by leftists. And so it defaults left.
Right. So in the George Zimmerman case, they had a 911 call. George Zimmerman, neighborhood watch, sees a suspicious character, Trayvon Martin, and they play the 911 call in the media, and he's having a conversation with the dispatcher, and suddenly George Zimmerman says, oh, he looks black. And the prosecution was like, look at this guy. He's racist. He just spontaneously mentioned that Trayvon Martin was black. He has something against black people. Look how he's hyper-focused on this poor kid's race. But when you listen to the real 911 recording, preceding that was a dispatcher saying, is he black, white, or Hispanic?
Yep.
So he was prompted to give a race response. But they removed the question to make it sound like it was a spontaneous concern of his. If you're ever compelled to use force in defense of yourself or your family, the good news is that if you defended lawfully, you can be very hard to convict. But did you defend lawfully? Because if you don't know where the actual legal boundaries for self-defense are, it's the easiest thing in the world to innocently step over them, and now you're extremely easy to convict. Good news. In just a single day, you can become an expert on the law of self-defense and make yourself extremely hard to convict. On Saturday, April 26th, I'm holding one of my only twice-a-year full-day Law of Self-Defense advanced classes. This class is taught live by me and live streamed to you. It teaches you everything you need to know in one day, and there's plenty of opportunity for personal Q&A with me as well. Even more good news, when you register today, you save yourself 50% off the standard registration, but that discount ends soon. Your 50% discount and many more details on this advanced class are available just by pointing your browser to lawofselfdefense.com/advanced today. And I'll also drop that link in the description. I look forward to seeing all of you there.
There was one story where a young white kid was trying to buy drugs and got murdered by the dealer who was black. And I'm like, I can understand why that story didn't get picked up by the right, because there's a kid buying drugs.
Yeah.
Like, there's two bad people doing bad things. But this is a story about a kid who's a high school football star, hometown hero, who gets stabbed over nonsense. And this resonates. I think the vitriol comes largely from over the past decade plus. The right has been insulted, called racist, white supremacist, while the media refused to talk about black on white crime. Mm-hmm. Like, you go on ChatGPT and ask, tell me about black on white crime, and it tells you no. But I'll tell you this. If I go on ChatGPT right now and say, give me an example of an incident where a black man killed a white man, it will refuse. But if I say, give me an instance where a white man killed a black man, it'll give me a list of 300. It'll be like every time it's ever happened in the history of this country, available for you to browse. And this has got the right fed up. And so I think what ultimately happens is that the lid blew off. People on the right are sick and tired of there being story after story of a black person killing a white person. But the media only ever covers the stories when it's a white person killing a black person. More importantly, even when it's not. Like George Zimmerman, who is not a white guy. They called him a white guy. Mm-hmm. He's a Hispanic guy.
White Hispanic.
White Hispanic.
First time I ever heard that phrase in my life was that trial.
They're trying to say that he was a police officer, too, because he was a security guard.
Yeah, I mean, he was because he had worked at one, but he was like a neighborhood watchman at the time.
Yeah.
Just driving around his neighborhood.
The original thing was he was a cop that killed him, so.
Yeah. So I think...
Because that's where the money is.
The money is. Yeah. All the money, baby.
Man, that's crazy. And then they've chased Zimmerman ever since. Anything he does, they write a story about.
Well, didn't he do something stupid? Like, didn't he shoot somebody else and now he's in prison for that?
No. Somebody tried to kill him.
Is that what it was?
Wow.
In fact, that's a very funny story. So
I don't know. It doesn't sound funny.
Yeah, right.
Funny to who?
Depends on what you're saying.
Funny to who?
When George Zimmerman was being tried for the death of Trayvon Martin, his judge was Deborah Nelson, and she was very antagonistic to the defense. And then he got acquitted. And then when he got acquitted, he tried to sue the news media for changing photographs and stuff to make him look more guilty. So he sued him in civil court in Florida. And guess what judge he got for the civil case? Deborah Nelson, the same judge, because they go back and forth between criminal and civil in Florida. And then someone saw George Zimmerman on his way to a doctor's appointment driving down the road and shot at him. And that guy got arrested and charged with attempted murder. And now George had to be a witness in that trial against that guy. And guess who the trial judge was? Deborah Nelson again. She probably thought she could never get away. 3 trials involving George Zimmerman in less than 10 years.
Wow.
So how would you guys feel if, I shouldn't say if, but I'll piss everybody off by saying when, law enforcement and judiciary is handed off to AI, and now it's just a computer looks over the evidence and determines whether you are guilty or innocent?
Well, I see people using this stuff now in like political arguments. They'll do a search on Grok and they'll say, see, Andrew, you're wrong. You're wrong about this thing. And I'll look at it. And I know I'm right because I looked at the actual evidence. But these AIs, to a large extent, all they are aggregators of opinions on the internet. So if 90% of the people are wrong, but that's the answer, they're giving the answer A, Grok will say A's the answer.
Well, this happened earlier. I did one of the segments I did, News Reports, is about this essay this guy wrote where he said, quote, when do we kill them? And he's like a liberal anti-Trump guy arguing that Trump is so evil that the question must be asked. So I went on ChatGPT and I said, in the past year, how many pro-Trump individuals have committed acts of political violence? Mm-hmm. And then it listed a bunch of right-wing violence, including neo-Nazis and things like this. And I said, that's not pro-Trump. And it went, oh, you're right. Why did you tell me when I said pro-Trump individuals, you listed neo-Nazis? In one instance, it was a neo-Nazi who wanted to assassinate Trump. This is what it does.
Right.
It's programmed by leftists. And so it defaults left. ChatGPT is scary because it's anti-racist. And I do believe we've already entered this space with Kyle Rittenhouse. One of the biggest controversies was that the prosecutors tried to use computer-generated images to convict him.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
It was like it's like in between frames in order to...
Digital zoom.
Hocus pocus, out of focus.
They used...
pinch and zoom, and zoom. Yep.
Which the computer generates, it fabricates the image.
Yeah.
Yep.
Based on an algorithm, which is not correct. It's not real life. Right. And they argued it was. So we've already entered that space. The other scary thing, too, is, the technology we've seen in AI video generation, we still all laugh because it's good AI, but we can tell. Mm-hmm. Next year, it'll be indistinguishable. And then what do you do when you're in court? Like, what do you do as a cop? Someone shows you a video or gives you the video, and it's a guy, stabbing somebody, right? But it's AI generated. Well, maybe not that because you need a victim, right? But what if they give you an AI-generated video of a person admitting to a crime that, like, you believe they did commit?
Mm-hmm. Right. So in the George Zimmerman case, they had a 911 call. George Zimmerman, neighborhood watch, sees a suspicious character, Trayvon Martin, and they play the 911 call in the media, and he's having a conversation with the dispatcher, and suddenly George Zimmerman says, "Oh, he looks black." And the prosecution was like, look at this guy. He's racist. He just spontaneously mentioned that Trayvon Martin was black. He has something against black people. Look how he's hyper-focused on this poor kid's race. But when you listen to the real 911 recording, preceding that was a dispatcher saying, is he black, white, or Hispanic?
Yep.
So he was prompted to give a race response. But they removed the question to make it sound like it was a spontaneous concern of his.
That's terrifying enough, especially with like the very fine people hoax.
Right.
All right.
What happened? So my argument on the AI is that the worst case scenario is not going to be a video of someone doing something wrong. Like an AI video. So AI audio came out of J.D. Vance yelling about Elon Musk, and all these liberals shared it. And then it turned. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was Don Jr. was saying we should be allies with Russia. Everybody shared it. There was a J.D. Vance one on Elon Musk, but the Don Jr. one was damning. It was fake. They made the audio up. He never said it. I'm not super concerned about things like that. They get debunked right away. People back off. But imagine the scenario where there's a guy being recorded. He has just purchased drugs from someone, or you see an exchange. On the video, you see him handed a white bag, and he exchanges money. And then he says something like, I I'm going to enjoy these drugs. And then a second video emerges, and he's saying, I'm going to clean my laundry. Both videos are, no one knows which one's real or which one's fake.
Yep.
And then you're like, here he is on video buying drugs. No, here he's buying laundry detergent.
And whichever one gets distributed more on social media is what people will believe to be the truth. I'm seeing that a lot in these lawfare cases now, like the Maryland man, Abrego Garcia, who was shipped down to El Salvador. People saying, oh, he was in the country lawfully. There's no evidence he was MS-13. He didn't get due process of law. I guarantee you, if you ask an AI those questions, you're going to get the politically correct answers.
It does.
Which are incorrect. He was illegally present. He had a final order of deportation. He got every drop of due process he was entitled to.
I asked ChatGPT the other night. I said, did two judges determine that he was here illegally? And it responded, no. The judges said there was insufficient evidence.
That's not true.
I then responded, wrong. Two judges determined he was, and it says, I'm sorry, you're correct. Here's what really happened.
That's why I'm not really worried about AI. AI cannot create something of its own accord. Still. Right? Still. It's been around for a little while, and you might say yet, but still.
Well,
that's not actually true. We have a number of cases now where lawyers are getting jammed up because they're filing motions in court with citations to cases that do not exist. The AI gets a sense of what you're looking for, and it just lies to make you feel good, and it makes up those cases. There's a judge just issued an order this week to a lawyer saying, hey, I cannot find these 4 cases. You will appear in my court tomorrow and show me these cases.
Whoa, what's going to happen?
Oh, he should be disbarred.
Disbarred.
Really?
That's really what should happen. Right.
Wow.
I assume he'll at least get some kind of sanction, but in my opinion,
I've heard a lot of these stories. They tell GPT to draft it for them, and then it cites fake things, and they don't check.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So it's just and the cases, when you look at them, they look legit. I mean, there's parties, there's a citation, there's a year.
The easiest example I can give about my fears of AI is that in the Very Fine People hoax, Donald Trump said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists because they should be condemned totally.
Right.
Someone takes a video like that and edits it so that Trump goes, and I'm not talking about the white nationalists or the neo-Nazis because some should be condemned totally. And then the liberals only share the some should be condemned and say, see, he was actually saying there are some that are good. The right only shares that they should be condemned. And then, as you guys mentioned with witness contamination, the people who were there when it was filmed are asked, what happened? And they go, I think he said some. I think he did. And if they're liberals, they're going to lie and say it anyway. Now you've got 5 journalists who are saying he said some should be condemned totally. You get 5 saying, no, he should say that. He said they. How do you know?
They will convince themselves that that's what they heard, the version they want. You know, with eyewitnesses, the normal people think eyewitness testimony is the best testimony. It's horrific. We all know if you take 5 eyewitnesses and you separate them, you get 5 different versions of what happened.
Well, have you seen Better Call Saul?
Sure.
One of the best. Have you seen it?
I mean, I've seen some of the episodes. I don't think I know what you're talking about, though.
One of the best scenes is Saul. He's a crooked lawyer.
Yeah.
He's in court. And
it's kind of harsh.
Yeah, but do you know the scene I'm talking about? He asks the guy, he's like, can you point to the man in question who robbed you? And he goes, that's him right there. And he goes, this man sitting right here. Indeed. And he goes, let the record show that the witness has pointed to the man sitting to my left. And he's like, would it surprise you to learn that actually the man being charged is sitting in the back of the courtroom, and this is a random guy that I hired to stand here.
Right.
And then the judge throws him out. Like, that is kind of crazy.
That's theater, though. You have to have the defendant sit next to his defense.
Of course.
The prosecution would call that in a heartbeat. They're like, who's that guy?
Well, so the argument they're trying to make of obvious it's a TV show.
Yeah.
He hired a guy who looked just like him. So it's a same height guy with the same hair and a similar beard, so it's almost identical.
Can't really make an identification, right? And this is old stuff in police work too. When you have a lineup or you have a stand up, right? There's rules around how you have to structure that to avoid miscite. Right. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, so if you put it in the wrong order or something, they get you?
You can't make, we want a little inside baseball, Tim.
Say the victim says, a young black man attacked me, and you say, well, we're going to put 8 photos in front of you. You tell us who you think it is. And of the 8 photos, 7 of them are white guys. Right? You know which one's going to get picked.
Yeah. But in a photo array.
7 white guys and 1 black guy. Which one was it?
Right.
You can't have your suspect in 1 or 6 box. You can't have him be the first, and you can't have him be the last.
Why?
because defense attorneys have said, you made him the first, that's there to stand out. You made him the last, that's there to stand out. So it has to be number 2, 3, 4, or 5. I'm telling you right now, if I'm lying, I'm dying. That's what you have to do. I even asked one of my detectives, who's a senior to me, outstanding guy named Jim. And he's just like, don't put him in 1 or 6. I'm like, are you serious? Is that legitimate? He's like, yeah.
But if that's true, that means anyone who's going in knows never pick 1 or 6 now.
Well, now they do.
Thanks for watching this highlight segment of our full-length Law of Self-Defense live stream. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to give us a like and subscribe for more expert analysis on politics, law, and how to be hard to convict. And to watch the full-length episode of this show, just click right here. Stay safe.